Hi everyone. Sorry I was not able to make it there today, but we will go ahead and take notes on lesson 8.3. So today's objective is going to be finding volume of spheres. Right, so 8.1 was all about finding volume of cylinders, and then we moved into volume of cones, and then today we're going to finally talk about what a volume of a sphere looks like. You do have a Big Ideas Math for homework today, so make sure you finish this video and then transfer into completing the Big Ideas Math. I will be checking the notes the next day to make sure all of the notes are completed. So make sure you are filling out all of the notes in addition to writing all the answers to the Edpuzzle as well. So in words, the volume V of a cone is a product of 4/3 pi and a cube of the radius of the sphere. So the formula is this: V equals 4/3 times pi r cubed. So remember, formula for volume of a cylinder was pi r squared times h. Cone was 1/3 pi r squared times h. Volume of a volume of a cylinder is 4/3 pi r cubed. This is something you will memorize, so it'll be really good practice for you to keep writing this formula over and over again as you're solving these problems. Okay, so let's do example 1. Find the volume of the sphere. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. V equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Because I'm solving for volume, looks like radius. Remember, radius is from the center of the circle to a point that's on the outside. Okay, so if that is my radius, right, so my r is going to equal 4. You're going to plug in 4 for r. So this will equal 4/3 times pi times 4 cubed. Okay, so from here, I would plug it into your calculator. So 4 cubed, right, to the power of 3 is going to equal 64. So I have 4/3 times pi times 64. This one I'm gonna multiply 4/3 times 64 first, and it looks like I get like 85.3333 repeating. Multiply that by 3.14, and you should get 267.946 repeating. It says round to the nearest tenth, right? That's what it says in my problem. So I could say that's approximately 267.9. Don't forget your units. It is going to be centimeters cubed. So the volume of the sphere is going to be 267.9 centimeters cubed. Okay? All right, why don't you try 1A and 1B on your own? Okay, 1A, remember, radius is going to be half of your center line, but in this case, the entire thing is 16, so r is actually going to be equal 8 feet, right? So V equals 4/3 times pi times r cubed. If you made a mistake here, you'll probably use 16 instead of 8. Remember, you have to use half of it. And if you do 8 to the power of 3, you get 512. Right? And then now I'm going to multiply 512 times 4/3. And I get 682.6667 repeating times pi. And I got 2,143.573. Right? If I were to round to the nearest tenth, it should be 2,143.6 feet cubed. So that would be the volume of this sphere. Okay? Next, so in this one, it looks like you're solving for radius, right? You're missing radius here. You're given the volume, so this one's a little tricky, right? So v equals 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Let's plug in everything that I know. I know v is equal to 36 pi equals 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Okay, so you're like, this one you may have thought, like, how would I solve this? Well, here's the thing. Let's get rid of my fraction first. How do I get rid of my fraction? Well, I will multiply by the reciprocal, right? If you multiply by the reciprocal, remember what happens? These fractions actually cancel each other out. And if I do that, right, if you multiply 3 over 4 times 36 over 1, these cancel out to be 9 and 1. So I get actually 27. So I have 27 pi is equal to r cubed. Pi r cubed. Okay. And then I divide by pi, divide by pi. These pi's cancel out. You're left with 27 equals r to the power of 3. So if 27 equals r to the power of 3, how do I get rid of that 3? How do I get rid of that cube? Let's think about that real quick, right? You do the inverse operations, right? So you take the cube root, take the cube root. Cube root of 27. How do we take the cube root of 27? Factor trees, right? What perfect square fits inside 27? It's 9 and 3. 3 and 3, so it looks like the cube root of 27 equals 3. So my radius is actually going to equal 3 meters. Okay, this one was a really difficult problem. So I would at any point rewatch this video. If you do have questions, or if you're like, ooh, I think you went too fast on that part, then remember, the nice thing about these Edpuzzles is you are totally able to go backwards and rewatch these videos at any point. So that's what I would really recommend doing if you are struggling with these problems. Okay. So if not, let's move on, and we'll move on to the back page. Find the radius of the sphere. Oh, this is exactly what, the problem that we just did is very similar to. So let's practice what we just did on your own problem with this problem right here. Okay, so once again, volume of a cube is v equals 4 over 3 pi r cubed. So I'm going to plug in pi, or 288 for volume. So 288 pi equals 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Right, and then always remember, right, I would try to get rid of that fraction first, because that fraction really isn't making things easier for me. So how would I get rid of it? I would multiply both sides by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is the inverse of it, 3/4, 3/4. Remember, you're given a calculator, so you can do this on a calculator too, and you should be able to get a nice number. Right, so if you do 3/4 times 288, you actually get 216 pi equals pi r cubed. Why? Because these cancel out. Right, you want r by itself, so you divide by pi, divide by pi. These cancel out, so you're left with 216 is equal to r cubed. I'm going to do this right here. Yeah, 216 is equal to r cubed. How do I get rid of that cubed? You take the cube root. Take the cube root. This is where you have to do your factor trees, right? So divide. I know that 6 goes inside 216, 6 and 36, 6 and 6. Now that you have your perfect cube, you have 6 is equal to my radius. And it looks like, because I'm given it inches, r is equal to 6 inches. Okay? All right, last example we will do together is this. A hemisphere is 1/2 of a sphere. The top of the silo, right? Here's the silo. The top of this is a hemisphere with a radius of 12. So it looks like it has a radius of 12. So this is 12 right here. What is the volume of the silo? Well, if you think about it, right, this is where it can get a little tricky. You can split this up into two shapes. Right, it looks like this shape, right, is a cylinder. Here's a cylinder right here. And here is shape number 2. There is the hemisphere, right? So what you're going to do, let's label this as shape 1, label this as shape 2. You're going to find the volume of both of these things, and you will add those up. So volume, here is the volume of hemisphere. We'll do right here, and then we'll do volume of cylinder over here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add these up. So let's find the volume of my hemisphere. Remember, hemisphere is 1/2 of a sphere. So you can write that, right? 4/3 pi r cubed is the volume of a sphere. So the volume of a hemisphere is going to be all of this divided by 2. Or here's what I would do, honestly. Instead of doing all over 2, I would just multiply it by 1/2. Right, multiply it by 1/2. That way it might be a little bit easier for you. It doesn't matter which one you do. So I would say V equals 4/3 pi r cubed multiplied by 1/2. This will make things a little bit easier for you. All right, so now let's figure all of this out. It looks like my radius, it says it has a radius of 12 feet. So let's just plug that in. 4/3 pi times 12 cubed times 1/2. I'm going to multiply these two fractions together. So I have 4/6 times pi times, if I do 12 cubed, that's going to be 1,728. We're going to start dealing with huge numbers here. And then if I multiply that by 4/6, I actually get 1,152 times pi, which is, multiply that by 3.14, 3,617.28 feet cubed. So that's the volume of my hemisphere, right? Hemisphere is half of your sphere. That's how I would talk about that. Now let's find volume of my cylinder. Okay, let's use what I'm given. 52, is that my height of my cylinder? Not really, right? Because the height of my cylinder stops at this point right here. If I want to find the height of my cylinder, it actually stops right at this point, and it goes up until this point. But this 52 is all of this from top to bottom, so I want to get rid of this. How do you think I would not include that top portion? And here's how. Well, from here to here, what is the distance? It's actually 12. Why? Because that's the radius of this hemisphere. So from every single point from here, it's actually going to be 12, 12, 12. So that means the height of my hemisphere is going to be 40 feet. Excuse me, the height of my cylinder is going to be 40 feet. That is the information that you will have to use. The radius is still 12. The height is going to be 40. So now let's plug it all in. Right? The volume of a cylinder is V equals pi r squared times height, pi times 12 squared times 40 equals pi times 144 times 40, which is equal to, if you were to plug that in, you get 5,760 times pi, which is, if you were to multiply that as well, you get 18,886.4 feet cubed for my cylinder. So once again, if you want to find the volume of the entire thing, you're going to take the volume of your hemisphere, add to that the volume of your cylinder, and if you plug that into your calculator, you get the total volume to be 21,703.68 feet cubed. I know that was a lot of work, right? But hopefully all of you were able to kind of piece everything together. If not, remember, you could always pause this video, rewatch it at any point if you were confused, and then the next day we can go over any clarifying questions you may have. Okay, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to do 2A and 2B. Submit these answers onto the Edpuzzle, and we'll go over them together to see if you got them correct. All right, next, This one seems easier, right? I'm given all of the information that I need. Looks like here's shape 1. That's my cylinder. So I could say V of cylinder. Plus, here is shape 2. And it looks like a cone. V of cone. All right, now let's do it. V of cylinder is going to be pi r squared h. Plus V of cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. So it looks like the radius is 3, right? Because here is my circle. My radius is from here to here. It's still part of my cylinder too, right? Because this circle right here is the same as the circle on top, right? So pi times 3 squared times the height of my cylinder is 9, right? So pi times 9 times 9, which is the same thing as 81 pi, right? 81 pi. I'm going to do the side on the right side right now too. Pi times 3 squared. The height is 5. Right, so it looks like if the height is 5, I can multiply all of that out. So 1/3 pi times 9 times 5 plus 1/3 pi times 45, because 9 times 5 is 45. If I multiply these two, I get 15 pi. So I have 81 pi plus 15 pi. If I were to, that's the same thing as 96 pi. If you plug that into your calculator, you get 301.44. Don't forget your units, meters cubed. And because it says to the nearest tenth, you can say approximately 301.4 meters cubed. All right. All right, last but not least, let's do this last one here as well. Here's this is a little interesting, right? Because you have two hemispheres. I have a hemisphere here, another hemisphere here. Well, if you have two hemispheres, that's the same thing as one sphere, right? That's the same thing as one sphere. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing like two hemispheres, I'm just going to find volume of a sphere because that's a lot easier for me. And then it looks like the middle part is the volume of a cylinder. And that's all I'm going to add. I'm going to do one sphere and one cylinder. Okay, but be careful. What is the height of my cylinder? It's not 8, right? It's actually going to be 4 inches. And here's why. From here to here, it's 2. So that means from here to here, it's 2. From here to here, it's also 2. So that's why it's broken up into 2. This middle part, it has to be 4. Okay, so this is going to be your height. Your radius is going to remain as 2. Now let's plug it all into my formula. I have 4/3 pi times 2 pi r cubed, right? I think that's the formula. Plus pi r squared h. Oh, I see why it's a little confusing because I didn't write the formula out. Okay, 4/3 times pi times 2 cubed plus pi times 2 squared times 4. 4/3 times pi times 8 plus pi times 4 times 4. If you multiply that out, it looks like I get like 10.6667 times pi plus 16 pi. And then if I do this, I get 33.49 plus 50.24. So if I were to add both of these numbers up, you get 83.73 inches cubed. But because it says approximate to the nearest tenth, I'm going to do 83.7 inches cubed as my final answer. I know these two last 3 problems were not easy, so I would really recommend rewatching, pausing, taking notes, highlighting things, trying to break this down. There's also a couple of videos on Khan Academy if you do a login that I assigned that you could watch that'll also explain it in a different way, and that might be, that might also be helpful for you. If you have any questions, we'll come in the next school day and we'll figure this out as well. Okay, but for now, fill out your level of understanding, And then you may begin on your Big Ideas Math. If you have any questions, jot them down and we'll go over them the next school day. Okay, have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.